Hello, bonjour, hello, hi, heya, and privyet, hockey fans. Welcome back to the Euro Puck podcast, the show where two Brits talk all things European hockey as part of the Hockey Podcast Network. My name is Man Rush, as you can see up there, Hayden also, and joining me, of course, is Chris Gadsby. Hey, Chris.
Hello.
How's it going today?
Yes, not too bad. Slap bang in the middle of the bathroom being redecorated, but
okay.
It's amazing how quickly they can rip a whole room out.
Yeah, it's kind of like you can have a room in your house for like 10, 15 years, and then in the matter of like an hour or two, it's completely gone.
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, all the tiles off the wall, shower out, toilet out, sink out. It's like, okay, right.
It is actually quite impressive that they can get rid of something so quickly that's been there for so long. But
our old bathroom is in a massive bag on the drive.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, let's hope you don't need to go to the bathroom anytime soon, because you're going to have to be taking a run outside.
We have two other ones, it's fine.
Oh, okay, that's good. Just wanted to make sure, I mean,
we've got two other ones.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of my life, I've now got these on. So, for those of you, Chris can't actually see this at the moment, but I'm wearing my glasses.
I'm guessing you need glasses.
Yeah, I'm wearing my glasses. I got them last week. I've gone a little bit short-sighted, let's put it that way.
Welcome to the club.
Exactly. So, you've got a pair of 4 eyes here on the podcast now. We're not in peak physical fitness anymore, Chris.
I don't think I ever was.
Me neither. So today is Tuesday, the 15th of September. Chris, this is our 4th episode of the Europuck podcast. That means it's been a month. It's been a month since we started the show. How have you been enjoying it so far, Chris?
It's been great. I mean, it's been more than that, really, because we recorded the first episode about a week and a half in advance, didn't we?
Yeah, true. But, since the episodes have been released, it's been 4 straight weeks. We've had bonus clips every single week. So a whole month, Chris.
Yeah, I know. It's been great. I've been enjoying it. Talking about European hockey. And I feel it's going to get just even better, really, when we get more leagues starting, because we won't be so KHL focused, really. I mean, not much of today's episode is going to be KHL focused because there's a lot going on.
Yep.
But we've got a good following going. We're getting lots of comments and opinions and thoughts on what we've been discussing. So it's all going really well so far.
Yeah, I mean, I've been having a blast. I think the one thing that I've noticed, and I think you've noticed as well, Chris, because when we've been discussing it in between episodes, is just how many people from different countries have been contacting us being like, we've been waiting for this podcast for a very long time. Like, there's nobody doing European hockey, like an English-spoken European hockey podcast, and we've been wanting this for quite a long time. We've had people from Belgium, from Sweden, from Switzerland, North America.
Cool?
Yeah, I know. I couldn't remember the one off the top of my head, but we've had people from like all over Europe and North America. So essentially, most of the world that have been listening to this podcast, which is nuts. Like, we're used to kind of having, obviously on my channel, it's mainly North American focused on YouTube. But it's really nice to kind of have a place that's bringing a lot of European hockey fans together, especially from places like Belgium, for example, where it might not be a big sport over there. Kind of similar over here, where the UK, we have a professional league, but it's not the biggest league out there. So it's really nice. I'm glad that people are enjoying the fact that we've got a way to bring everyone together. So I'm pretty pleased with that. But speaking
Absolutely. I mean, we knew it was kind of a bit of a gap in the market. When we were doing our research, and then when we pitched it to the guys at the Hockey Podcast Network to kind of switch our field really from what we were doing last year. But I didn't realize quite how much of a gap and a good uptake it would have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the fact that we've obviously only been going for a month and we've had a pretty good response so far, like, I'm really happy with that. But speaking of some of the leagues that we've kind of tried to get some more exposure for, there's a bit of bad news to start off this episode. We've actually got a bit of breaking news from today, a couple of hours ago, earlier today, and that is the news, I'll bring it up here for you, that the 2020/21 British Elite Ice Hockey League season has been suspended. It hasn't been cancelled, it's been suspended. So let me just take you through this article on the website, and then we're going to get Chris's thoughts, we're going to get my thoughts. This is obviously a very big topic for us, being British hockey fans. So, on Monday's video conference call, the 10 teams of the Elite Ice Hockey League unanimously agreed that they cannot commit to a 2020-21 league season starting on December 5th, as previously planned, and the season will be suspended. League chairman Tony Smith, who's also the owner of the Sheffield Steelers, spoke on behalf of the 10-member teams. Quote, "We've been very open that we need to have fans back in our arenas for us to begin playing again. We operate around 75 to 100% capacity at our venues, and this is the level of crowds we would need in order to go ahead at any point, which isn't a realistic option right now, obviously given the fact with the coronavirus and all of the situations. So government compliance, along with the safety of our players, officials, and staff and fans, is paramount to this decision. If government guidance and support were to change, some teams may be ready to revise their plans to return to play and would need a minimum of 8 weeks to prepare. We are looking into the possibility of some form of top-level ice hockey in the UK, potentially taking place in early 2021. This could start in late January or early February and go through into late June, but may not include all teams, and again, this is dependent on crowds being allowed back inside venues. We continue to speak with the Department for Culture, Media and Sport and devolved administrations about their plans for their return of fans to arenas that would enable to make this happen. But having a full Elite Ice Hockey League season starting in 2020 with 10 teams is beyond us, unfortunately. So, the very big news for us here on the podcast, for a lot of fans, I would imagine, listening to the show, turns out the Elite Ice Hockey League, a lot of people are saying it's cancelled. I guess you could say it's cancelled, but the official term is suspended until at least January, February. There's obviously a lot of people thinking, well, just put the final nail in the coffin, just say the season's cancelled. Chances are they're not going to be able to get anything going for the next couple of over the next couple of months. Some people are saying, oh, well, there still holds out hope that there might be a season coming. Chris, when you saw this announcement, because we were obviously waiting for this before we recorded this episode of the podcast, yes, we wanted to make sure we talked about it. What are your thoughts on the announcement that the season has been suspended until at least early 2021?
Yeah, we knew that this announcement was coming today, so we knew we were going to talk about it. For those of us kind of in the ice hockey circles, particularly when I've been speaking to my colleagues at the BBC and other media people around the Elite League, this has come kind of as no surprise to anybody.
Yeah.
I think even when it first got pushed back to December, a lot of us went, it's just not going to happen, particularly because they need, as Tony Smith has said, a minimum of 8 weeks to prepare.
Yep.
And everything seems to change every kind of week or so. I mean, now we can't meet in more than 6.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of came out of nowhere, didn't it?
Yeah, you now all of a sudden can't meet in more than 6, other than a few select things where it's still 30 and nobody really knows what's happening.
Yeah.
We're now being encouraged to just report our neighbours.
I didn't realise this was communist Russia, but okay then, you know.
Yeah, it's just if you see your neighbours with more than 6 people, call the authorities. But so I'm not really surprised. There's this cancelled, suspended thing, which is kind of floating around, and the way I'm looking at it is the fact that the Elite League season is cancelled.
Yeah.
But what they're saying is they're trying to get some form of top-level ice hockey, whether that's a mini tournament or a series of mini tournaments. But we're not going to have, from what I understand anyway, a full-on league season.
Yeah.
With one big league table. I think there might be some localized tournaments, something like that, some form of top-level ice hockey, as they've said. But I doubt that we're going to have a full-on season. We might have a short season, maybe play every team twice or something, 18 games or 3 times 27, something like that. And of course, it depends on how many teams decide they want to play for half a year.
Yeah.
We hope it might be 10, but we don't actually know. So we'll see kind of what happens in the coming months. But if they're looking to get something going in January, you're then looking at early November for kind of a further update and announcement. And obviously that is a couple of months, 6 weeks or so away now. So we'll have to just kind of see what happens. But in summary, I'm not surprised in the slightest. Obviously, that's had a knock-on effect for the Cardiff Devils, which we'll talk about in a moment.
Yeah.
But not surprised. And Yeah, disappointing, but it will come back eventually in some form.
Yeah, I think disappointed but expected, I think, is the way to kind of summarize this. I mean, obviously, Chris, you have contacts within the UK ice hockey world. I don't. So to most people that watch this or listen to this, they might think, oh, like both of these guys have they have ins in the UK hockey. I don't. I'm just an average fan, just like most of you listening. So to me, and the reason I say this is because I think to most average Joe hockey fans, the writing was on the wall for this season, especially, and I think what really kind of did it was the fact that all of the top players in the league have moved on elsewhere to other leagues to carry on their seasons. Because obviously, we've talked about it in a lot of detail how if there's no certainty as to whether there's going to be a season in the UK, the players are going, okay, well, I need to earn a paycheck. We're not NHL players. We don't get paid millions and millions. We might be lucky if we get paid several tens of thousands of pounds or euros or whatever a season. So we need to make sure we find that employment and get that money for our families because our families come first. So when there was when there was this uncertainty as to whether the UK season was going to go ahead, and all of these players from all the different teams in the league just started to migrate elsewhere across Europe, where there was that certainty, where there were leagues setting up and getting ready for this season, which we're going to talk about a few of them in a few more detail. Not many Elite Ice Hockey League players going there because they're a little bit better than the Elite Ice Hockey League, but we'll talk about them in later on in the show as well. But yeah, the writing was kind of on the wall. And speaking of the Cardiff Devils, I think that's a really good point to mention. Because the season has been suspended / cancelled, whatever you want to call it, the Cardiff Devils have officially they've pulled out or withdrawn from the Champions Hockey League this season, which I think, given the circumstances, makes complete sense. The Champions Hockey League did write an article on it. I haven't got it with me on the show at the moment, but they've basically said that Färjestad, their opponent in that first round, because remember, if you guys are unaware, they're doing the two teams going up against each other for a home and home aggregate series, and then whoever wins goes through to the round of 16. There's not the usual group stage setting that there usually is, obviously because of the current situation. So Färjestad has been given a bye into the round of 16. So obviously, Färjestad aren't going to complain with getting a bye into the round of 16, but hockey players being hockey players and sports people being sports people, they don't want the easy way through. So I think they would have preferred to have beaten the Cardiff Devils fair and square, as would most teams, or as would Cardiff if they wanted the chance to go through. So, Chris, let's talk about this announcement from the Champions Hockey League, from the Cardiff Devils more specifically. Todd Kellman of the Cardiff Devils came out with a really good statement a couple of days before this announcement that the Elite League season wouldn't be running. And I think he said what a lot of fans were wanting to hear in terms of what was going on behind the scenes, what the thought process was. He basically came out, I don't have the article with me either because I've just remembered it off the top of my head, but he very much said, like, look, if there is a season, like, we're trying everything we can. We're looking at every single opportunity, every single possibility that a season could run. It's simply not viable, but that doesn't mean if we have something ready to go in the next few months that we won't be ready. You know, like, I feel like it was kind of a statement, but it was more of a Q&A for him, I think, in terms of some of the things that he said that a lot of fans, there'd been burning questions on some fans' minds. So I think a lot of, especially Devils fans, but Elite League fans were really happy to hear that. So, Chris, what are your thoughts on Cardiff pulling out of the Champions Hockey League? It's pretty understandable, but what do you think this might do in terms of the overall impact of the Champions Hockey League this season? Will it have a huge impact, or is it just a small bump in the road?
I think it's just a small bump in the road. Again, once the Elite League season got suspended for the first time, I mean, Cardiff came out and said, look, if the Champions Hockey League goes ahead as it is, we can't play.
Yep.
The Champions Hockey League then got pushed back to November. And at that point, it was a possibility if the Elite League started in December, because they would be kind of 6 weeks into recruitment and pre-season.
Yep.
Then when the Elite League gets pushed back again, it just made it not possible for Cardiff. Again, it was something that we saw coming, to be honest.
Yeah.
As a lot of this has been, yes, the Elite League have taken their time to explore every possible avenue and have tried to everything they can to get something going. But in the circumstances, we could all see this coming from quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
So So yes, as you said, Färjestad wouldn't have wanted to go through in that way, but sometimes these things happen. Hopefully there is no detriment to the Elite League's participation in future seasons. I think it would be very harsh if it was, because this is completely out of their control. I think a lot of the players that have gone overboard, as we've heard from Todd Kelman in his meetings in the past few weeks, they're kind of on like 1-year deals with the agreement that they'll come back to Cardiff next season for 21-22.
Yeah.
That is great in principle. We'll have to see if it happens. If a player decides that they really like this other country and they're putting up 60 points, they may want to stay. But that is all just kind of just thinking it off the top of my head, really, and hypothetical, which is the word I was looking for there. We'll just have to kind of chalk this one up as a year that doesn't happen, and focus on the other leagues here on the Europuck podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, we've been talking about the British League quite a lot in terms of our relationship, Chris, and kind of how we've been talking and podcasting for the last couple of years. The Elite League has been a big factor of that. We did used to do a podcast where we just talked pretty much specifically about the Elite Ice Hockey League. So the fact that we follow it so closely, and obviously you've got quite big ties within the Elite League, and part of your income has come from working with the Elite League and working with BBC and everything. It sucks from kind of like a personal level in the fact that, we really like the Elite League. We'd like the season to run ahead if we were being selfish. But you got to look at the bigger picture here. Obviously, we don't want the league to do everything they can to run this season, then the season gets stopped or something goes wrong and then the league is really badly financially hit. We kind of we want this to be a short-term loss for a long-term gain that the Elite League can last for the next 10, 20 years and so on and so forth. I'd rather they pulled the plug on this season and go, look, the situation isn't good at the moment. We need to kind of hold back on this. We're not going to lose as much money as we were expecting or that we could do if we did sign players, etc., etc. So you know what? We're going to be careful with this. Rather than going, right, let's sign a load of guys, let's try and get this season on because we need to make money, but then it completely fails and stuff goes wrong. So, and also with the Champions Hockey League, it sucks that we're not going to have a team in it this year. It sucks that we're not going to have a UK team to support, because whenever the Champions Hockey League happens, all the fans of every team in the Elite League come together for that one team. It's the only time where rivalries are kind of put aside because we want to see British hockey do well. And the fact that we're kind of being, especially Cardiff fans, are being robbed of that, it sucks. I don't think it's going to, like you brought up a good point, I don't think it's going to impact their place or the UK's place in the Champions Hockey League. I think we'll still get a place. I think they'll understand that the current circumstances can't really allow for anything, but it sucks. But, we've got to move on. It's what the hockey players do whenever they lose a hockey game. It's like, just got to pick yourself up, keep going on. So, RIP, the Elite Ice Hockey League's 2020/21 season. We might see you in January, February. Keep us updated. We'll keep you updated and everything will be great. So, let's move on to some hockey that's actually been happening. We'll do a quick roundup of both the KHL and the Polish League. So, let's start off with the KHL standings. These are how the standings look at the moment. We have CSKA Moscow at the top of the Western Conference. They've played more games than any other team. 11 points on the season with 3 wins, 2 shootout wins and 1 overtime loss. So still haven't lost in regulation. That's a pretty good record. This is as of about 5:30 UK time on Tuesday, the 15th of September. It's obviously going to have changed by the time this goes out, but this is just for context sake. SKA St. Petersburg has taken second place in the Western Conference, 9 points in 5 games. They're also undefeated in regulation time, 4 wins and 1 overtime loss. Lokomotiv, they take third place in the Western Conference with 4 wins and 1 loss for 8 points. So those are the top 3 guys. Dynamo Minsk up there still. That's a pretty impressive run for them so far, although their goal difference is 16-16. So they're tied the most goals against in the entire Western Conference with Spartak Moscow. So that's quite interesting. The fact that the team's sitting in 4th place in the conference, the top half of the conference, and or the top third, you could say even almost, and they have obviously allowed a lot of goals, but, they managed to get the performance. So they've lost 2 games. They've won 3, 2 in overtime. And in the Eastern Conference, we used to have an undefeated Avangard Omsk team, but they lost their most recent game. They top the Eastern Conference, and with the exact same record is Metalurg Magnitogorsk and Salavat Yuleyev. They all have 8 points on the season, with Avangard only allowing 6 goals so far this year, and Metalurg allowing 7, so some very strong defensive cores over there in the Eastern Conference. You've got Akbars Kazan in 4th place, so they're very much still up there. You've got Avto Mobilist in 5th. But in terms of the teams at the bottom of each of the standings, we're going to have Jokerit there within the next couple of weeks because, unfortunately, their situation's gotten a lot worse. If you don't watch my YouTube channel, they obviously had the Minsk controversy. They got the forfeit in the first game of the season. They've now been potentially exposed to the coronavirus, so they're not going to be playing for the next 2 weeks per the Finnish government guidelines. They were all tested today, and they've been found negative of any traces of the coronavirus, but due to the fact that the Finnish government says you have to quarantine for 2 weeks, they're not going to be playing until September 25th. So we're going to have probably another episode out maybe by the time they next play a game. So they're going to be down at the bottom of the standings within the next couple of weeks, but through no fault of their own. You've got Vityaz in 9th place. They had a really good preseason, but they haven't quite found their form here in this regular season. Dynamo Riga at 10th place in the Western Conference, and HC Sochi with 1 overtime win and 3 losses, only 4 goals on the season for them. And then Neftahimik, who also were the team exposed to the coronavirus, they've only won 1 game this year. Kunlun Red Star, they're finally getting some of their imports in, but they've lost 5 straight games, so it's not a very good performance for them. And Amur with 6 straight losses on the season to bottom out the 12th place in the Eastern Conference. So, Chris, so far we're about 2 weeks into the KHL season. It'll be 2 weeks tomorrow, I believe, that the KHL season will have been going. What are your thoughts so far? What are your thoughts on the front runners in the Western and Eastern conferences, the teams that aren't quite producing well? Are there teams that you think might go on a bit of a run soon? What are your thoughts?
I mean, obviously the Jokerit situation is difficult. Just a slight, this is live because Salavat Yuleyev beat Torpedo Nizhny Novgorod earlier today by 6 goals to 2.
Okay.
They've put themselves 2 points clear at the top.
Oh, okay.
So they've now played 6, won 5, lost 1. But Metalurg Magnitogorsk have got Sochi starting. Let me just have a look. Now. Okay. They're about 2 minutes in. So they could easily, considering that Sochi are bottom of the Western Conference, they could jump back up there to 10 points as well. Really good game, actually, for Salavat Yuleyev. Some key players in that, particularly Timu Hartikainen, who long-term NHL fans will know from the Edmonton Oilers, his brief spell there. He had a 5-point game today.
Wow, geez.
He had a 5-point game, 2 goals, 3 assists. And alongside that is Marcus Granlund, and he had 2 goals and 2 assists today. The top line basically doing pretty much everything, to be honest, for Salavat Yuleyev today. But I mean, it's early season is always kind of quite interesting.
Yep.
One thing that I found, Yuleyev, 23 goals in the first 6 games for Yuleyev. So they're averaging just under 4 goals a game. So some sharp shooters there. Am I surprised? I'm trying to decide if I'm surprised by the bad start by Amur Habarovsk or not.
Okay.
Because so they've conceded getting on for 4.5 goals a game in their first 6 games.
Oh, ouch.
Whichever way you look at it, isn't really brilliant.
No.
No. There's no real kind of good way of saying it. I'll just bring up their fixtures, see if we can give them any kind of crumb of comfort. But I'm not
to be fair,
sure.
They are, kind of talking about Amur, they are the team that's allowed the most amount of goals by quite a large margin. And for context, Kunlun Red Star, sure, they've played 1 less game and they've allowed 8 less goals, but they're a team that's only just now starting to get some of their imports to their team. Like, We mentioned this a little bit last week. They've been playing with a team mostly of kind of fourth-line KHL guys, prospects. Although they've had one prospect that's done really well. I can't remember his last name now. It was a German something. He scored 3 goals as a rookie. He was the rookie of the week this week in the KHL. Like, he's had a really good performance. So they're getting some production. And the fact that they've got a team pretty much of like KHL third, fourth line as depth players and a few prospects here and there. And they're doing better than Amur, who picked up Niall Yakupov this offseason, who obviously didn't have a great run in the NHL, but he hasn't had a very good run in the KHL the last 2 seasons either, but he's a serviceable KHL player. The fact that they haven't been able to win one of their first 6 games, that's really rough, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, and I mean, if you're looking for kind of crumbs of comfort for them, I mean, their losses have come against CSKA Moscow, who are top of the West.
Yep.
You've got Magnitogorsk, who are second in the East. You've got Omsk, who are third in the East. You've got Lokomotiv Yaroslavl, who are third in the West, and Sevastopol Cherepovets, who are fifth. So they've come up against the teams that have really hit the ground running.
Yeah.
But then when you have a look at the fact that they've lost the first 6 games of the season, and then they lost their last 5 games of preseason. So they've lost 11 games in a row, really. So not strong for them. But it'll be interesting over the next few weeks. Obviously, Jokerit will end up kind of out of position.
Yeah.
But it's starting to take shape. You've got, particularly in the West, you've got CSKA and SKA, the teams you'd expect to be up there.
No surprise.
Making their way up towards the top.
Yeah.
Same in the East. You've got your Akbars, Kazan, who's making the way up there as well. If they win the game in hand they've got over Yuleev, then they're going to go tied at the top as well. So It is starting to make that kind of what we would expect table, just with a few kind of surprises in there. We'd expect CSKA, SKA to be up at the top. We'd expect Akbars Kazan to be there. Similarly, we'd expect Kunlun Red Star to be down near the bottom. Same with Sochi.
Yeah.
So it is beginning to take a bit of shape.
Definitely. But to the KHL's credit, the fact that they introduced a hard salary cap for this season has meant that it is a little bit more competitive than years past. Sure, you've got CSKA, SKA, Avangard, Salavat Yuleev, all of those teams at the top. But I mean, for example, you've got Dynamo Minsk and Sevastopol at 4th and 5th in the Western Conference. If you said that 2 seasons ago, quite a lot of people would think you're a bit crazy. Like, those 2 teams are usually in the Dynamo Riga, Sochi positions in the Western Conference. So the fact that, sure, it might just be they've got off on a bit of a hot streak to start the season, but the fact that, I mean, in terms of Minsk's credit, they've only won 1 regular season game. They've won 3 games in regular season and overtime. Sevastopol, they've won 2 games in regulation time, and they've got 1 game in hand on most of the conference. So if they win their game, they're only 1 point back from Lokomotiv in 3rd. So, we've got a couple of teams in there that look like they could be jumping up. And the same with Sibir Novosibirsk. They've been a team that's kind of struggled these last few years. They're in 7th place in the conference, and Baris Astana are sitting up in 6th. So we're seeing more examples of a few teams that for the last 3 to 5 years have been constant teams towards the bottom of the standings. The fact that the playing field has been evened a little bit, some of these teams are getting the chance to acquire some slightly better players because the top teams can't quite pick them up, and they can go on a bit of a run themselves. So it's really good to see a bit more parity. I think it's going to still take a lot more time for more parity to be in the KHL. We've got to give it a few more years of that hard salary cap. But, credit where credit is due. The salary cap looks like, at this point in the season, a couple of weeks in, that it's bringing a bit of parity. Will that continue? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, the net leaders of the East are actually Avtomobility Ekaterinburg, down in 5th, because they're 3 points back, but they've got 2 games in hand. Yeah. And the reason I say they're net leaders is because it looks as though it's going to be very likely that they go 5 games played, 4 wins and a shootout loss for 9 points. The reason I say that is that away from home at the end of the first period currently, they're 4-0 up at Niftahemek Nizhny.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So a good first period there for Avtomobilist Ekaterinburg. So they look like they're going to move within 1 point of Saliev Yuleev with a game in hand. So it'll be interesting to watch them over the next few weeks.
Absolutely. The good thing is the fact that Europeans, we have a lot of good hockey over the next few weeks coming up. We've got a lot of very strong teams with some former NHLers that you might recognize, some guys from your native countries that you might be rooting for. There's going to be lots of great hockey in the KHL over the next few weeks. But let's move on to the other league that started up that we talked about over the last couple of weeks, the Polish League. Yay! I've got the stats up here from the Polish League. They've all played 2 games so far this season. So, Chris, do you have the stats up there? Do you want to take us through them?
I've got them up on my phone. The Polish League is not quite as English friendly as the
So I've got flash scores standings
that's
up
what
here.
that's what I've got on my phone. So
so you want to take us through?
I can. So an early lead in the season then for JKH GKS Jastrzębie. They have scored 9 goals and only conceded 3, so they're top of the table. They're one of 3 teams alongside KH Turin and JKS Tahir. They are all on 6 points, having won both of their first 2 games. Only Stozny Dansk, bottom of the table after not getting a single point from their first 2 games. And then Zalebi Oswiecim with the 1 shootout defeat, leaving them in 9th, the only team at the moment outside of the playoffs. Of course, it is very, very early days.
Yes.
Nice to see. In 4th place at the moment is Unai Oswiecim. We mentioned one of their players a couple of episodes ago.
Yep.
That being of Sherbatov, the Israeli. Now, he actually picked up a goal and an assist in their 6-1 victory over Dansk in the first game. And then in the second game, which they did lose by 3 goals to 2 against GKS Tahir, he scored in the 3rd period with 3 1/4 minutes to go, short-handed.
Wow.
So from 2 games to start this season, he's got 2 goals and an assist. So a really good start there for Sherbatov. But as you said, it is early days and everything is kind of working itself out. There's been a couple of big scores. Jastrzębie winning by 7 goals to 2 in the opening game against Zalebi. So an interesting one there. And then there's only been 1 shutout, which is against Podhale Nowatarg. And they lost by 4 goals to 0 to KH Turin. But yeah, the Polish League just ticking along quite nicely. Early days, really. It looks as though, from what I understand from reading some comments as well, that the PZHL under-23 side isn't going to take any part in the Premier League in Polish hockey this time around. So it should be a much more straightforward 4-game season.
Okay, fair enough then. I mean, do I hear Eliza Sherbatov for Polish League MVP already this early on in the season, Chris? I mean, that'd be pretty cool.
I don't know. I don't know what the full-on stats are in terms of the Polish Hockey League. But
top scorers, I believe I have it here according to Elite Prospects. Let's see if I can bring it up.
Yeah,
not
I got
Elite
it.
Prospects,
So
Flash scores.
Joint third.
Yes, yeah, joint third. Elo from Sanok has 3 goals and an assist, so he's only 1 point back from first place. So, Eliza Sherbatov, we're rooting for you here on the Europuck podcast. I think, obviously, based on your story and the reason why you're there, very honourable in our opinion. So, go and do it, Sherbatov. I want to see him win. I'm calling it now. He's going to be the MVP of the Polish League, Chris. I'm calling it now. I want someone to clip this and be like, I'm going to put this out when we go through the Polish League MVPs, all right? I'm calling it.
SK St. Petersburg finding themselves behind to Avangard Omsk at the moment in the first period.
Damn, okay, fair enough. As an SK St. Petersburg fan myself, I'm kind of like, oh, damn it. But
I know, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, they went down against Neftahimic. Yeah, they went
did.
Down, I think.
That is very true.
Yeah, so, if any team can bring it back, it's SK St. Petersburg. So... we've talked about the 2 leagues that have happened, and we're pretty much halfway through the episode already. Let's go through the leagues that are coming up this week, Chris. I believe you've been doing a lot of research and having a little look at the teams and the leagues that we should be looking out for. You've obviously got some information up there from the previous 2 seasons or so. So I'm just going to get rid of this. Chris, shall we talk
Can we
through...
start...
Yeah, sorry?
I was going to say, can we start with Denmark? Because that's the one I've got up.
I was going to say, let's start with the Danish Metal Ligaen. Thank you very much, Chris. So, for those of you who don't know, this is Denmark's hockey league. It's their top domestic league. It's starting when, Chris?
This one is starting on Friday, I do believe.
Okay, so it's starting
I will give it a double check, but I'm pretty sure it starts on Friday. As
far as we're aware, this season, the Danish Metal Ligaen starts the day of this podcast being released. So if you're a hockey fan in Denmark, if you're wanting to see some Danish hockey, just go look up the Metal League and you should be able to find some the day this is released. So, Chris, do you want to just take us through? You want to take us through? Yeah, so it starts on Friday. Take us through.
A full program of fixtures, sort of.
Okay.
There's 9 teams in the Danish Metal Ligaen. So obviously they can only have 8 playing at one time. So yes, we've got 9 teams taking part. It's a 48-game season. Well, it was last year anyway, which is playing each team 6 times. So home and away 3 times each for a 48-game season.
Okay.
And the team, the reigning champions are the Aalborg Pirates, who I must say dominated the league last year, really by winning the league by 18 points.
Okay.
It's another one where it appears as though you get 3 points for a win in Denmark.
Okay.
So they won by 6 games clear of Herning Blue Fox, who came second. I'm liking the names
definitely.
Of the teams in the Danish Metal Ligaen. So I'll run through them all for you. Maybe you want to pick a team that has the best name. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we've got the Aalborg Pirates. Then we've got Isbat Energy, Frederikshavn Whitehawks, the Herlev Eagles, the Herning Blue Fox, Odsee Bulldogs, Rungsted Capital, Rule Mighty Bulls, and the Surnine Yiski. There you go. So I don't know, pick a team out of those and then I'll tell you how they did last year, and that can be your team to support.
And I've got to say, Chris, pretty good job on the pronunciations there. Given the fact that we're just 2 English blokes and you're trying to speak Danish, that's a pretty good job. So, Chris, could you just take us through...
If I've got anything wrong, let me know and I'll correct it.
Exactly. So could you just take us through a bit of a snapshot of last season and kind of give us the teams that performed well, the teams that didn't perform so well, kind of the teams maybe in the middle of the table that we might need to look out for? Obviously, you've mentioned some of the top teams last season, but are there a few teams that we should keep an eye out for, teams that maybe had a decent stretch towards the end of the season, if you can find that out? Obviously, that might be a little bit too difficult, given the short span of time.
No, that's fine. So there, as I said, there's the 9 teams in the league. So Aalborg came top. Now, there would normally be a playoffs, but because of everything that happened, there wasn't this year. But there is normally a playoffs as well. So you've got the Aalborg Pirates. They came first. Herning Blue Fox came second. Surnine Yiski came third. And then Rungsted Capital came 4th. At the bottom, it was Odsee Bulldogs who really struggled. Only the 12 wins from 48 games, so 25% off their games. But when you compare that to Aalborg, who won nearly 3/4 of their games, there is that quite big disparity. I mean, it's 69 points between top and bottom. So that's a 23-game difference in a 48-game season.
Wow!
So
you could say there's a bit of disparity between the top of the league and the bottom. Obviously, it helps with the fact that it's usually 3 points for a win. That obviously helps to distance these teams a lot, and you might see the point differential and be like, "Wow, okay, like this team was terrible." But I mean, if it was a 2-point win or 2 points for a win in the league, then it would obviously be a noticeably closer, not hugely closer, but noticeably. So what you're saying is there's a bit of a disparity between top and bottom. Yeah,
there's a bit of a disparity. But I mean, looking at the past winners, it isn't one team that dominates all the time. It does move about a bit. You kind of have the same 5 or 6 roughly by the look of it. So obviously they have your winners, your finalists, and then like bronze medalists coming out of the playoffs. So this year there wasn't a playoffs, but Aalborg topped the league. The year before that, it was Rungsted. Aalborg won it again the year before that. Then there was 2 years of SBR winning it, but they played different finalists each time. Before that, you had 3 years of Czerniski, but again, they had different finalists each time. So it is a different team getting to the final pretty much every single year. I'm trying to look at, there may well be the same winners, but the last time that the same two teams got to the final, and they're not even in consecutive years, was Herning Blue Fox and AAB Ishockey, which did it in 04-05 and 06-07. Before that, you've got to go back to the 94-95 season for the same two teams getting to the final in years running.
Wow,
in consecutive years. So it's really quite a competitive league, and it seems to change bit by bit each time.
Yeah, so by the sounds of it, there's a bit of disparity between the best team and the worst team in the league every season, as you would expect in a sporting season. However, essentially every year there's everything to play for. There's no set hierarchy, like if we equate it to the Champions Hockey League, Frölunda always win it, or a team from Sweden's always in the final, or a team from Finland's always in the final, or anything like that. It's not like, oh, all the Finnish and the Swedish teams top the group stage pretty much every single year. With this league, the good thing is, and this is quite similar to, I think, a lot of leagues, and that's kind of the sport of hockey in general, if you're not having a good season, it's going to show because other teams are going to take advantage of it, but it's really difficult to kind of create that dynasty team, which is what you want. You want parity in the league, don't you, Chris?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, looking at the club history, so Herning Blue Fox are the most successful team, 16 trophies.
Wow, okay.
From 1973 to 2012. But because it's such a small league, obviously, the teams do have quite a bit of history. There is a lot of, teams coming through, and they get a lot of trophies because the chances are higher being a smaller league.
Yeah.
But I think, you do see it. And I think it's a lot of, from what I can gather, it's a kind of maybe a bit like the NHL but in a much smaller scale, in the sense that teams will maybe set themselves up, have a good few years where they win titles. So if you have a look at Esbjerg, they won in 16 and 17, and that was the first time in 12 years that they'd won it, but then they haven't won it in the last couple of years. And in fact, they haven't even got to the Final Four in the last couple of years.
Wow, okay.
So they had that peak and then they've come off again. And that seems to be the case for quite a few sides. So Herning Blue Fox won 5 titles in 6 titles in 8 years.
Wow, okay.
In the 90s. And then they had a little bit of success in the early 2000s as well, and it was kind of a bit sporadic, but then they haven't won since 2012. So they're in kind of, they've won the cup, but not the league and the playoffs. So it does go quite a bit. So I'll be interested to watch the bit of the Danish league and see how that seems to unfold this year. Is it going to be much the same as last year, in the sense that you've got Aalborg sprinting out in front again, or do you have some different teams? Maybe Odyssey might come through and really challenge. I'll just have a look and see what they've been doing in the previous few years, see if they've got anywhere else. So they lost in the bronze medal game in 2016-17, but before that, they've not really got past the quarterfinals in the last few years. So maybe not. And they've got a tough opening fixture as well, as they are starting on the road at Aalborg Pirates. So difficult opening fixture for Odyssey. But there's 4 games taking place today as this comes out, Friday the 18th. We've got Esbjerg against Rungsted Capital. We've got, as I said, Aalborg against Odyssey Bulldogs. We've got the Herning Blue Fox against Czerniski. And we've got Frederikshavn Whitehawks against Rulor Mighty Bulls. So those are the 4 games. I'm going to put my money on... I might go for Herning Blue Fox because I like the kind of acronym of Blue Fox.
Okay, fair.
I like the team name of Blue Fox, really.
Sure. Why not? Why not, Chris? The only other question I had, but I've noticed we've started to run out of time a little bit, was what's the kind of domestic players to import ratio like? Is it full of international players, or do we get a lot of Danish players suiting up in the Metal Ligaen?
I'll just have a look. It is predominantly Danish.
Okay, so that's pretty cool.
I don't know if they have an import limit. I could have looked it up, but obviously didn't think about it at the time. So yeah, Aalborg are all Danish. They've got 4 Canadians, a Russian, and 2 Swedes.
Okay.
So that's 7. And then let's just look at Eastburg. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've got 6 imports. So I think there's probably an import limit of around 6 or 7, but it is predominantly Danish players in the Dansk Metal Ligaen.
That's pretty cool. So, I'm sure there are several other leagues around the world that wish they could have a system in place where they could have predominantly their domestic players. But obviously, this is one of the smaller leagues in Europe, similar to the Polish league. But we wanted to make sure we gave it its time and gave a bit of attention to it, because both Chris and I are also really interested in this. So we're like, okay, we've now got an opportunity and a platform to kind of look at these other leagues and be like, oh, which teams play well, which teams don't, what are the import limits like? So so that's the Danish Metal Ligaen starting the day of this podcast release. So go and check them out, find a team to support, and let us know that you went and gave them a look. So we're going from the smallest league or the lowest tier league, and we're working our way up to the big leagues now. We're at that halfway stop now with the next league that we're going to look at, and that is the Czech Extraliga. So here we go. I've got their logo up here. So Chris, could you just give us a bit of a crash course of the Czech Extraliga? The obviously when it starts would be a good thing. Kind of last season's was kind of similar to what we just did. The teams that played well last year, teams that didn't play so well, maybe how many imports. I would imagine the Czech League is a lot more predominantly Czech players, given the fact that the Czech Republic has been a pretty good hockey nation over the last few decades or so. But just give us a bit of a crash course for those people that don't really know too much about the Czech Extraliga.
Yes, there's a lot of Czech players in the Czech Extraliga.
I thought so.
Interestingly, according to Flash Scores, we've got a couple of games starting on Thursday. So yesterday, as this goes out.
Okay.
Whether they brought those forward for a reason, I'm not entirely too sure. We've got a couple of games starting on Thursday. So yes, the Czech Extraliga. Again, it is so there's 14 teams in this league, and they are spread out across the Czech Republic.
Okay, good.
It's not like the Polish league where they're all in one small bit apart from Dansk, and nobody likes Dansk. But there we go. I'll run through then the teams for you. We have Barani Zrin, Billy Tigri Liberec, BK Mada Boleslav, HK Dynamo Pardubice, HC Karlov Vary, HC Cometa Brno. Obviously, all the HC stand for Hockey Club.
Yep.
We've got Litvinov, Oscillari Trinus, Olomouc, Plzen, Sparta Praha. We've got Vitkovice. We've got Mountfield HK, who actually have a longer Czech name, but everyone kind of knows them as Mountfield HK, so I changed it to that. And then Motor Český Budějovický, the final team in the Czech Hockey League. The Extraliga,
interesting.
So last season, when it loads up for me, it was Billy Tigri Liberec who topped the standings, 102 points from 52 games. Again, we seem to have another. We've got 3 points for a regulation time win, 2 points for an overtime win, and 1 point for an overtime loss.
Okay.
In the Extraliga, the top 10 sides go into the playoffs. So with that leaves 4 teams that don't, and they do have promotion and relegation.
Interesting. Okay.
It's the Tip Sport Extraliga. So last year, Rittery Kladno, who finished bottom with 60 points, were relegated out of the Extraliga, and the team that came in was the team at the bottom of the table currently, Motorcesk Budějovice, and they finished. They won the league last year. They were the champion with 153 points.
Wow.
From 58 games played, 49 wins, 4 overtime wins, 1 overtime. 49 wins, 1 overtime win, 4 overtime losses, and just 4 regular losses all season.
Wow. Okay.
That was there. I think they absolutely dominated.
I think that's a fair assessment to make there, Chris. Yep.
What they do, it's kind of a bit weird. It's a similar thing to the Scottish football division by the look of what I can gather. What they do is they play 30 games each. So they play everyone home and away twice.
Okay.
And then the top half of the league and the bottom half of the league split. Okay. And then they play each other again. But only the teams in your half to decide what the actual result is going to be.
Interesting. Okay.
It's interesting. So I believe they play 58 games a season because otherwise they play... Yes, they do. They play 58 games a season. I'm just going to say 88 games is a bit excessive.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
No, so what they do is they play everyone home and away twice. So they play the other 15 teams home and away twice.
Got it.
And then they split. So then they split into 2 groups of 8, and then they play the other teams there home and away twice again to give another 28 games. So yes, they finished on 153 points, which was 44 points clear of anybody else.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah.
Wow.
So that was how they got into the Extraliga out of Czech 2 last season.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, quite dominant. So yeah, if you want to go for teams at the top again, Tigri Liberic's always a good one to go for, of course. Ocelari Trines and Sparta Praha, or Prague as we would call it. They're going to be in the Champions Hockey League as well because of the Extraliga and what they play in. So there's teams to look out for in continental competition as well. So, yeah, plenty with the Extraliga. And as you said, a lot of Czech players in those teams. If I just look at Billy Tyrek, for example, they've got one import, which is Justin Peters, the Canadian. They've got 2. They've got a Belarusian as well, and a Slovak in the case. They've got 3, and then 4. So they've got 4 imports and then a couple of dual nationals.
Okay,
so
fair enough.
It is very much kind of Czech dominated, this league. And that one starts, as we said, on Thursday with a couple of games.
Okay, good.
Thursday, Friday is round 1. So there are 7 teams in that. We've got Vitkovice against Litvinov. We've got the newcomers Český Budějovice against Mountfield HK. We've got Pilsen against Sparta Prague. We've got Barani Zrín against Olomouc. We've got Karlovy Vary against Mladá Boleslav. We've got Kometo Brno against Třinec. And then we've finally got to round out the first round. We've got Billy Tigri Liberec against Dynamo Pardubice.
Okay, fair enough. So you've got some Czech hockey to look forward to. You've got some Danish hockey to look forward to. There's plenty of hockey coming back to Europe, folks. If you want a couple of little pub quiz or pop quiz questions or pop quiz facts from the Czech League. Firstly, Rotary Kladno, the team that went down into the Czech League 2 this season, is actually owned by former NHLer and future Hall of Famer Jaromír Jágr. That is his team. He owns the team, and I believe he's still playing for the team.
That.
So Jaromír Jágr, Kladno is his team. Last season he played for the team. Obviously,
I can check that if you want.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. I'm not sure if he's playing this season. Double check that for me. And while you do,
I'll check it for you.
The other fact is Sparta Prague or Sparta Praha, however you want to call it, if you want the official pronunciation or the kind of anglicized pronunciation, they have actually reached the Champions Hockey League final once before, and I believe it was the very first Champions Hockey League about 5 or 6 years ago, and they lost to I'm not sure if it was Frölunda. I don't think it was Frölunda. I think it was a different Swedish team.
It wasn't Frölunda the first season. I can double check
I'm
that
trying to
for you
remember who it is now, but it definitely wasn't Frölunda. But yeah, so the Czechs, they've got some good teams in the Czech Republic, or Czechia, however you want to call it. So yeah, keep an eye out on them. Obviously,
the first.
Oh yeah.
So the very first season was an all Swedish final. It was Lilleå against Frölunda.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
2016-17 season, Sparta Prague got to the final, they lost to Frölunda.
Okay, so they did lose to Frölunda. Okay.
And then last season, Mountfield HK got to the final, and they lost to Frölunda.
Yes, that's very true. So we've had two teams from the Czech Republic.
2 teams in the final.
Yeah, 2 teams. But neither of them have been able to win it. That sucks.
And then we've had 3 teams in the semi-finals.
Wow.
So in the 2018-19 season, we've had HC Pilsen. And then in 2017-18, we had Ocelari Trinec and Billy Tiberi Liberec. So 2 Czech teams got to the semi-finals, and they lost to JYP and the Vakšari Lakers.
Fair enough. And speaking of Ocelari Trinec, one of the players to keep an eye out for there at the moment is Detroit Red Wings prospect Filip Zadina. He played quite well during the preseason for them. So those are a couple of interesting tidbits. If you're a Red Wings fan and you're looking for a team to support, maybe Ocelari Trinec might be the right one for you. About Jaromir Jagr, he's still alive and kicking in the Czech League.
Yep, he did play for Kladno last year. 29 points in 38 games. They're still putting the numbers up, and he is with the team this year as well. 48 years old now.
He doesn't want to stop, does he? He doesn't want to stop. No. Why not? If he's still putting up points like that, he doesn't have to stop. He can stop whenever he wants.
29 points in 38 games is still decent.
And I mean, he owns the team, so he's not exactly going to be traded anytime soon. So, problem solved. So the last league that we want to look at today in this episode is the biggest one of all of them, and one that I think a lot of people might have a good understanding of, and that is, of course, the Swedish Hockey League. So, one of the best leagues in Europe. We ranked it as our second highest league in Europe when we ranked our European leagues pretty much in the first episode of the Europuck podcast. A lot of Swedes in the Swedish Hockey League, as you would expect. You've got teams like Frölunda, the Vakšari Lakers. Chris is going to take us through all of the teams specifically. He'll do another crash course over the next sort of 5-10 minutes or so. But yeah, they make they are a very good factory for making future NHL players, as we've seen with the influence of Swedish players within the NHL over the last sort of 40, 50 years. Especially nowadays, there's a ton of Swedish players in the NHL. The Swedes know how to play hockey, don't they, Chris? So give us a crash course on the league, the winners last year. Obviously, we've got Frölunda in the league, so they're going to be competing for the Champions Hockey League again, because why not? It's them. When it's starting, and maybe some interesting players that are foreigners, perhaps, to keep an eye out on, because obviously it's a very Swedish-based league. There's a lot of Swedish players playing there, as you would expect. Are there any sort of North Americans or former NHLers playing over there that we should probably keep an eye out on if you're a fan of that player? So go for it, Chris. Take us through it.
Yeah, okay. So the Swedish Hockey League starts on Saturday, the 19th. As you mentioned, there's 14 teams in the league. Again, promotion and relegation.
Okay.
From the Swedish Hockey League, although the relegation playoff games were cancelled this year.
Okay.
So I'll just check if that actually happened or not. So the 2 teams that should have played off have been allowed to stay in the Swedish Hockey League.
Those lucky buggers.
I know. So last season's champions were Lilleå. They were the champions last year. Head coach of Thomas Berglund.
Okay.
And so they won with 106 points. Again, 3 points for a win. They finished themselves 14 points clear of Färjestad.
Okay.
Who came in second. Frölunda only 7th this time around.
Wow.
With 85 points from their 52 games. So they play each other twice home and twice away. Everybody twice home, twice away for 52-game season.
Okay.
I'll run through the teams then. So we've got Brinas, we've got Desjardins, we've got Frölunda, we've got Färjestad, we've got HV71, we've got Oskarshamn, Leksands, Linköping, Lilleå, Malmö Redhawks. We've got Rögle, we've got Skellefteå, AIK, we've got the Verho Lakers, and we've got the Hufrebro HK hockey team. So those are the teams. It is just a straight, everybody plays everybody. There's no conferences in Sweden. What would be interesting is if they did, because everybody does kind of east and west. You couldn't really do that with Sweden. You have to kind of do north and south, really.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
The majority of the teams are in the southern half of the country. Only Lilleå and Skellefteå are in kind of the top half, really. So that's kind of their local derby, I suppose you could say. But in terms of notable players, I mean, there's a few that. Thing is with the Swedish Hockey League, I was looking at this before and I was doing a bit of research, in the fact that a lot of the players, if they have a really good year in the Swedish Hockey League, they get snapped up by a KHL side.
Yeah.
So if you look, for example, let's take the leading point scorer Marcus Nilsson last season with 60 points in 50 games.
Wow.
They've gone to HK Sochi.
Okay.
Then you look. So I suppose the best player that's still in terms of points last season is Cody Curran, the Canadian who's with Röhle. He never actually made the NHL. He had some time in the AHL with the Hartford Wolfpack after coming out to the University of Calgary.
Okay.
So there's a few players around, but none of them really that, particularly from the stats from last season, have lit the league up. We've got Ryan Lash, the American from Frölunda, who's playing for Frölunda, had some time in the AHL with the Toronto Marlies. He's been over with, he had a year in the Liga. He's had a year in the National League in Switzerland with SC Bern. So they get around a bit, but yeah, that'll be a really interesting season. That starts, as I said, on Saturday.
Okay.
Having a look at those fixtures. So there's 4 fixtures on Saturday. So 8 teams playing. We've got Leksand against Skellefteå. We've got Frölunda against HV71. We've got Lilleå against Färjestad. And we've got Röhle against Linköping. So those are the opening fixtures. In terms of who you think is going to be at the top again, I'm surprised. I mean, that shows how much I didn't pay attention that Frölunda was so far down. Lilleå is always a shout, as are Färjestad. They're always in the Champions Hockey League.
Yeah.
Frölunda are as well. Vasco Lakers normally are, although they didn't make it this time around because they had a bad season. They only finished 10th out of 14 last season.
Okay.
So what that says to me is that it's good that a couple of other teams are coming through. So you've got, in the Champions Hockey League this season, Lilleå, Färjestad, Röhle, Skellefteå, and HV71 from Sweden. So nice to see some different teams in the Champions Hockey League, with the Swedish League getting started on Saturday.
Completely agree. And the fact that if you want another name, or another couple of names that are in the Swedish Hockey League, you've got Elias Andersson of the New York Rangers, the prospect. He's with HV71 this season. He's had a pretty good preseason with the team as well. So, just like keep an eye out on the teams. We're obviously going to be focusing on the Swedish Hockey League pretty much every single week. Kind of similar to what we did with the KHL and the Polish League this year, or this week, I should say, this episode, going through the standings, kind of looking at the teams that are doing well, the teams that might have dropped off over the last couple of games. That's what we're going to pretty much be doing with a lot of the leagues, I think, as we go along. But like Chris mentioned, there's a lot of parity in this league. There's a lot of very talented hockey players in this league, and kind of similar to the NHL in the sense that there's a lot of there's that cycle, that championship cycle that all the teams in the NHL go through, where they rebuild, they build their team up, draft, free agency. Obviously, there's not so much. It's not exactly similar within the European leagues, but draft, free agency, build up a contender, maybe win a cup. Then once all the players get old, you trade them off, rebuild, and start from scratch again. So there's very much that cycle within these top leagues. I'm pretty sure we're going to see it with the Finnish Liga when we talk about them in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, that was a look at the Swedish Hockey League. So this week, 3 new European leagues starting up. So by the time this episode goes out, 2 of them should have started up, with 1 coming the day after. So folks across the European hockey world, I think a lot of people will be happy to say that European hockey is officially back now. The KHL, it's back. It's kind of like the appetizer. Now we're getting everything coming back now. So look forward to like keeping an eye on all of the European hockey. We've got some great hockey to keep an eye on. Let's have some fun on the podcast and talk about some great teams and some great hockey. Now, we were going to finish off with a few audience questions like we always do, but unfortunately, you folks didn't give us any. We put out a tweet yesterday. We obviously have the YouTube comments, and look at us, poor Chris. Like, poor Chris, poor Hayden. We don't have any questions to answer this week. So we pretty much have to wrap it up here. So on that note, on that very sad note, we're going to end today's episode of the Europuck podcast. Thanks for joining us, though, guys. Even though you didn't send us any questions, we do really appreciate you coming and listening or watching the show. We hope you enjoyed it. If you want to keep updated on all things Europuck podcast or send us your thoughts, opinions, or questions, either from today's show or for our next show, which you should definitely do, as you see, we will answer them if you give them to us. You can follow us on Twitter at Europuck Podcast. And if you enjoyed listening to either or both of your hosts today, which of course you did, then you can follow myself. Yeah, exactly. You can follow myself on Twitter at OddmanRushYT or Chris at Chris_Gadsby. Thanks again for listening, guys, and we'll see you again next time. Have a good one, folks.